Hi, folks. Andrew here, Top Fitness Strategies. I am the face who runs the place. A great interview coming up for you today. Hey, before we get started, we do have our sponsor as usual. And it's my 102 at home common sense health and fitness tips. That's right, 102 at home common sense health and fitness tips. And what this is not me showing you how to do all kinds of exercises. This is me going around each room of the house and showing you different health and fitness tips. By that, I mean, yeah, I'll show you a couple of possibly like knee bends and stuff like that to do, but also some stuff around the house that you don't know could really help you out with your health. You'll understand once you get to it. Go to topfitnessstrategies.com/102 tips, and there's also videos with it as well. All right, so go check it out. All right, now on to the main event. Today, I have an interview. Fantastic. It is Cheryl Whitelaw from peaceandpower.ca. Yes, .ca, not .com. Keep that in mind. Cheryl is a Move More Without Regrets coach and CEO of Peace and Power Movement Services. She supports her clients to learn through their movement through body-based coaching, vitamin mindful movement classes, and hands-on work to support functional movement. Her clients share a desire to live with vitality, to keep going as they age, and often are recovering from operations or injuries, trauma, or live with life-changing conditions like MS, cerebral palsy, or brain injuries. Excuse me. Also, her special talent is supporting people to find what is possible for them as a practice of moving into wellness and wholeness. She is committed to supporting people to age well and find their own whole body, mind intelligence. Woo! And now you can also add that you're a guest on Top Fitness Strategies, but I don't know. After that intro, you might not want to. Welcome, Cheryl.
Welcome. Great to be with you. Yeah, that's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And me with my exceptional reading skills, like this, you'd think I'd practice this 5 or 10 times before I do it, but nope, that's not my style. Anyway, welcome aboard, and great to be here. So let's start off the easy way. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, and things of that sort.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Yeah, so I call myself, a somatic educator. I have a few things in my toolkit. Lately, a Feldenkrais practitioner, which is a way of using movement to make positive brain and nervous system change. I'm also a being in movement practitioner, and that was taking Feldenkrais and Aikido and putting it together to help people with trauma recovery and with peacemaking work. And finally, I'm an integral master coach. So it's a whole body development approach. And, I can't kind of do just one thing. So I bring them all together
Hmm.
really just to, I loved in your intro when you talked about like 102 tips, like around the house. Like for me,
Right.
it's all about the functional movement in your life and how to, I sort of say to people, I help you with your verbs. It could be walking, it could be golfing, but it also could just be like when you go to squat and lift the bag of, like soil for the garden, how can you do that in a way that you could do it 1,000 times and not actually have any regrets afterwards?
Fantastic. Now you just threw out a whole bunch of stuff. You use these great big words
I know.
that if you follow me at all, and the people who follow me right now are laughing because
Yeah.
I can't say half of these words. I think you said somatic practitioner. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's right. Somatic
Okay.
educator. Yeah. Teaching
So,
people through the body. Yeah.
okay. What is that again?
Yes, so a somatic educator. And so,
Educate.
yeah, basically, like I help people learn from their own bodies.
Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
What?
I mean,
What? Huh?
we're sort of in this world where, right, like you learn how to walk, when you're little,
Yeah.
and you kind of learn to be good enough, right? Good enough that you're not falling down, good enough that you're not like walking into things. But often, unless you're, like a athlete or like a dancer or something, you don't really learn anything more about your movement. And so I tap into the very process that when we first like were able to stand up and walk and all the times we fell, like that basic brain body process, I tap into that with people to help improve their movement. Often as adults, we care about that, after
Mhm.
some kind of, injury. Like I'm working with a golfer right now, rotator cuff, like
Right,
shoulder
right.
injury. And it's like, yeah, can't move the way the golf pro is showing you how to move. But, I'm finding a way that she can do the movement, have a good swing, but not use her shoulder in the way that led to the shoulder injury in the first place.
Interesting, interesting. And also you brought up the term dancer a second ago, and
Hmm.
and and that catches my eye or my ear, I should say,
Hmm.
because, I have a background in ballroom and swing dance, competition
Sweet.
ballroom swing dance. Now at the very, very, very low levels of all this,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
So when you said that people learn to walk, and that's basically it. They don't learn beyond that unless
Hmm.
they get into a specialized thing, like you were saying, and
Hmm.
that and it hit home right when you said dance, because when I started dancing, oh my God, there is a whole different way of presenting yourself, of
Hmm.
moving your feet, moving your arms, and everything else than, like you said, we were growing up being used to.
Yeah.
Totally different. So
Yeah.
I understand exactly what you mean with that one. So that's pretty good. So
Mhm. No, and it's, I mean, we have amazing bodies, right? Like anybody who's really like into fitness, into movement, we can do amazing amounts of things. And the thing is though that when we move, how we move sets up our brain and nervous system to say, okay, we're just going to do this and we're going to cut away all the possibilities of the other things. We can learn them, but as we get older, we're in this like, we have to build those connections for the things that we're learning. Anything we've stopped doing, and if you look at any kid, right? They're running around, they're jumping, like they're doing 100 different movements an hour, right? As adults, we tend to do less. And so we kind of prune away those options. We can reclaim them, but we kind of stop, the whole suite of what we can do gets a little bit smaller because we specialize. We play this game or that sport or we do that thing in the same way all the time.
wow. That's great. Hey, if you're just joining us, I'm with Cheryl Whitelaw from peaceandpower.ca. Check it out. Okay, so a question that I have, and what you just said was brilliant, because I said the same thing. I said the human body is an amazing piece of equipment, is an amazing machine, so to speak. It can
Mhm.
do all kinds of things, and movement. And I tell people all the time, if all you do is get up off the couch and move, walk around, not even just more than just walk, but walking is fantastic. But there's so much more you can do. My question to you is, I know this is a big buildup here. The difference between movement and exercise, or working out, or is there a difference in the between the two?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think for me, it really relates to why. Like, what is it that you're looking to do? So, when I think about like I train a martial art. I train Aikido, so it's a Japanese martial art. Great fun. If I'm doing exercise or movement to build strength, then I need to bring certain kinds of qualities to the movement, right? I mean,
Mhm.
and you could probably tell me, better than I could, but I need to load the muscles with enough weight or enough pressure that it's actually challenging the muscle fibers and creating that demand in the brain, the nervous system to build more. Um, and then I need enough repetitions that I'm going to like kind of exhaust the muscles. Like that's where that demand comes to say, oh, she's doing something that needs that kind of strength. We better build more muscle, right?
Mhm.
Um, Movement around the house may not have that quality, but it definitely helps to, in my world, I think about movement through the brain and the nervous system. So it
Right.
helps to continue to strengthen all of the connections so that, literally you reach for a glass and you've got all the little coordinations needed to do that well. Someone with brain injury, they may have lost those connections through the accident or whatever. So, it's like practicing something to keep it accessible, to keep it easy. Um, so it really depends what you're looking to do with your movement.
Okay. So, I have a list of questions I wrote down as
Yeah.
I'm doing some stuff here. So, why is movement so important to the human body? I mean, I know we're designed to move, But
Mhm,
why specific movements? I guess is my question is, and instead of just the basic stuff like you said we were taught when we were little, and now it's just ingrained.
mhm.
We do this one, but why is specific movements? Um, if that's even the right kind of question here, but why is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
so
it's an
important?
awesome question. Yeah, and early on when I was looking at, how am I gonna focus down and niche what I do, I decided to focus on balance because, as soon as we're born, gravity hits us, right? And so our whole body, our whole system learns how to be in this field of gravity that when we lose balance, we fall, right?
Right.
And this is something that I find particularly important as people get older is that all of a sudden they may not be able to rely on their sense of balance. And it's often little things, right? Like they haven't walked around enough, their ankles get stiffer, their toes don't kind of articulate the way they used to, like toddler feet are nice and soft and they move all sorts of places.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden the elements of their balance system go offline a little bit or kind of I call it going to sleep, right? And so moving all the time keeps all of these small sort of sensory receptors. I don't want to go deep dive into nervous, like it's not that
Right. 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 Right.
answer,
Right.
right? But you need to keep all of those awake, and movement is the single easiest way to do that. And especially varying your movement a little bit. So different shoes, bare feet, different surfaces. Then your body has something to do to actually continue to learn and maintain balance. It's when we kind of do the same old, or we only do so much, the brain's like, "Oh yeah, I don't really, I can just phone this in, right? I don't need to do
Hmm.
anything new." And so then we start to like those abilities erode. Everything that we don't the brain is a kind of use it or lose it. If you don't use it, it prunes the connections and we lose our abilities with things.
Oh, I like that. It proves the connections. I like that. I like that. Okay, so I'm going through your bio here,
Mhm.
and I know I'm all over the place, so bear with
That's
bear
okay.
with me here. You say vitamin mindful movement classes. All right.
Mhm.
Right away, I thought the vitamin I thought the stood for mindful movement. I think no, there's got to be
Mhm.
something different, or does?
It does. You got it. Yeah,
Oh,
you
okay,
got
all right. Because
yeah.
okay, so it's the vitamin mindful movement classes, right?
Yeah, I mean, the idea I sort of had when I launched it, it's not, if you think about, you do online, exercise classes. I mean, I launched my stuff during the pandemic, so we were all online with what we were doing, but to really position it as a movement supplement. So, you can do whatever kind of activity that you do or classes or fitness regime that you do. This is a supplement to make all of that better, so that you're, using your connection to the ground better. You can work less hard and just all of the basic postural stuff. But then for any kind of, specific movement, like the series I'm teaching right now is looking at so many older adults have stress necks,
Mhm.
and often there's a bit of a hidden freeze habit in that, like bracing, like I'm getting ready or the world feels scary and people's neck tightens and then they go through their day trying to do what they do. And so it's a series just focusing on how do we interrupt that kind of habit, create more freedom so you can do all the things that you want to do. So it's not like replacing an exercise class, it's like a supplement to an exercise class.
Okay, so it's not an actual vitamin that you digest. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
like you said, like a supplement to an exercise. Okay, okay, I get
yeah,
it.
yeah,
That makes a
yeah,
lot of sense.
yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, gosh, sorry, there's so many questions that they keep opening up different threads here and everything else.
Mhm.
All
Yeah.
right, and so I want to back to one of the questions I had written down earlier too. You mentioned the term functional movement in your bio.
Mhm,
I know what functional exercise is because I've talked to other folks about that. So I'm
mhm.
going to assume functional movement is similar to it, but it's not. But for the people who don't know, can you explain what functional movement is and why, and maybe possibly why that's important?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to always look at movement with clients in terms of their environment. What are they trying to do? What do they need to make happen? So, I think about, um, I was working with a client recovering from MS. Well, not recovering, right? Living with,
Mhm.
and her walking was no longer functional. All of the ways she had coped as the disease progressed, um, made her how she walked. I don't know how she didn't fall down with every step, like just sheer willpower. And so working with her with the constraints she has, but also the environments that she was working in. So one of the things we really focused on, she really struggled stepping down off of a curb. Mom got kids, like lots going on, needs to be able to get around. So we really focused on how do we help her mobility and her balance in that kind of environment that she's in to solve her immediate problems, putting on her shoes, like various things that are important to her that make her world like better and bigger. Because
Mhm.
I find often with these constraints, people's world they get really small, right? Like I can't walk here, I can't do that. So focusing on where it makes the biggest difference for them.
Okay. No, and this brought up something in my mind. It just popped in here. So if this person didn't come to you, excuse me,
Mhm.
and I got this tickle in my throat today. I don't know why.
Yeah,
Sorry about that. But if
that's
this
right.
person that has MS didn't come to you, and I'm just using MS because you brought it up. It doesn't have to be MS. But if a
Mhm.
person something happens to that person and they can no longer remember, let's say just say how to walk, like they were brought up. Is the human body, and maybe you can't answer this, I don't know. And it's just a question just popped up. Is the human body resilient enough to say, okay, we couldn't walk like we have before. Now I need
Mhm.
to find a different way to walk. Will the human body take over and say, okay, we need to walk, so let's find a different way to do it than we've done it for the last 30, 40 years? Is the human body does that or
Yeah, my opinion is yes. Like, yeah, I'm coming here not as a neuroscientist or,
okay,
like
right,
medical
right.
doctor, but when I think about the clients I've worked with, um, and definitely, some of the reading I've done, our brain and our nervous system, I think we're just at the beginning of an era to really understand how incredible they are and what is really possible with that.
Mhm.
And, there's always another way to build, like, one of the ways we talk about, like, when there's a plan in the brain to go and move and do something, we call it a motor plan, right? So
Okay.
and our brain makes predictions based on past experience about what I can and what I can't do. And, what I'm really seeing and working with clients is, that sense of self, that self-image that says, "Oh, I can't do that." That can be a really powerful limiter, and it may not actually be the last answer. That I've worked with people, I had someone with a brain injury, so she showed up in a wheelchair, and we worked on, she was capable of walking, but she really struggled to coordinate the whole deal safely, right? Like, she kept falling, and that was her issue. So we worked on really building those connections so she could really feel the ground through her feet and have a sense of security. And so by the time she left me, she was walking with a cane,
Oh,
you
wow.
know? And so, and again, I can't make the promise of like, I could do, it's like it's
Right,
not
right,
magic.
right.
It's her nervous system and brain, but she also had incredible drive and will and did the work to, like literally I would call it nervous system reps. So
Mhm.
rather than, like 50 bicep curls, doing the repetition so it wires the connections enough to make it happen. So I believe there's a lot of possibility. It can be a lot of work, but, I think we're at the beginning of an era where more and more we're gonna see people who actually can take themselves past what medical science has said, this you can't do anything anymore, like, this is it.
Okay. So another question has popped in my mind. How would somebody know that they need a movement coach? And I'm going to assume
Mhm,
you're not the only movement coach on the planet. I'm going to assume there's a whole
mhm.
network of movement coaches, so to speak. Am I correct with that one, first of all?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Because me being in the business, I've never heard of the term movement coach. That's why I'm fascinated with this quite a bit.
Mhm.
So, how would a person know to contact a movement coach? What does a person, I guess, need to have happen to them, or the desire to reach out or find something called a movement coach?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of find I work at 2 ends of the continuum. So definitely people who have had something go really wrong, right? Car accident, injury, hip replacement, and so what I find is the kind of supports that are sort of typical, right? Like there's medical support, physiotherapy, that sort of thing gets them part way, and they're helpful steps. Things need to be strengthened, they do need to do that work, but then they're still not functional in their lives. And so this is where, I sort of connect with people about, they have goals about what they want to do, there's a gap between what's possible, and I help them find what's possible for them. So it may not be how somebody else does it, but really working with what they can make happen with themselves, and also teaching them how to learn from their own movements. So it's sort of like self-improvement. They can, like, I definitely want to work myself out of a job so that they can start
Mhm.
to learn and say, hey, when I do it this way, it doesn't hurt, I can do it like this. They're really able to work with themselves, and so for me that's a success. The other end of the continuum is very much about performance. So I was working with someone who, hockey in the winter, triathlon in the summer, kept pulling groin injury. And so to go in and say, okay, in the way that you're doing your running, your cycling, your work, your hockey stroke, how are you moving such that these muscles end up being victims of this,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
finding a new way to move that helps him with his performance, but like, again, without that kind of negative consequence of, I'm 3 games on the ice and then I pull my groin and I'm out for a month.
Okay. All right. So, oh my gosh, something just popped in my head. And work with me here because I'm not for certain how I even want to ask this question.
Sure.
Okay, you just mentioned injuries and everything else recently, and I don't know why all of a sudden, but I'm having more and more people come up to me and say that they have what's called golfer's elbow, which I never heard of this term until about 10 years ago. And even being
Hmm.
in the industry, I never heard of the term. I always heard fitness elbow, I mean, tennis elbow, which is on the outside,
Yeah.
golfer's elbow is on the inside.
Yeah.
Okay. And you also mentioned you work with golfers before.
Hmm.
And I know everyone is an individual case, and one size doesn't fit all, especially with what you do, as opposed to what I do. It's more of a one size fit all, being
Hmm.
just a trainer. I come to the gym, lift this weight, and blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not diminishing what I do whatsoever, or any trainer whatsoever. But what you do is more specialized for an individual. I understand that, and
Hmm.
unless I'm totally missing something here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if somebody comes to you and says, "Okay, I have golfer's elbow,"
Hmm.
what are some of the basic things that you would suggest them do or not do, or is there something like that you can?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't mean putting you on the spot, but I'm.
no, no, it's great to get into a problem. Like, if people are finding that, yeah, something's really, like, the attachment here is really sore,
Mhm,
I would wanna know, like, what's going on in your movement, and especially if it was a golfer, probably in how you're holding the club, that means you're overworking this side and not working the other side. And so, off the top of my head, where I would start to look is, like, how are they using these fingers because of the line of attachment with muscle and the tendons there. I'd want to see how are they doing the rotation movement. Are they over rotating, as they bring the club around? I would want to see, what's working or moving in their core and their torso. There's you know I do work with people and they're kind of unique
Mhm.
individuals, but there's some things that I can follow, which is if there's, injuries more to the outside, I get really curious on what's happening in the core.
Okay.
Are their ribs moving? Are they, moving and then they stop and then this arm has to take on the last bit of the stroke? Like those are the sort of clues I would go into to see what's going on such that they're making that sore because the body will do amazing things for us. So when
Mhm.
something comes to that kind of injury, there's a really good reason for it happening in terms of the movement. I start to break down what are you doing such that you end up here, right? With this kind of
Okay.
outcome.
Okay. And also, I want to be clear with this. To get golfer's elbow, so to speak, it doesn't have to be just golf. Like
Right.
somebody who, and I'm the one who brought the term here. And
Yeah.
somebody who's never played golf can still get what they call golfer's elbow. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
know somebody who did a lot of push-ups and body weight exercises quite a bit, never
Yeah.
touched the golf club, and he had a huge issue with actually, I can point to it right there because
Mm.
I've had in the past, I've had something like that as well. That's why I first heard a term because I started hurting right there and I didn't know what it was. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so you don't
Yeah.
have to be a golfer.
No, and for those sort of like to me, those are questions of, we have these great bodies, they're really complex, and we look at the balance of how you're using your whole self. When these kind of injuries show up, it tells me, okay, that little bit's on the job all the time when you're doing certain motions, and other muscles are kind of like, we're on break, right? Like
Okay.
this muscle's doing all the work, we're fine, and so trying to see like where can we pick up the slack somewhere else so that this doesn't have to do all the work. Generally, I look at is there a way to transfer that work to a bigger set of muscles and to do more of the movement so that, like, not that this isn't a big muscle here, but not compared to, say, upper arm or,
Mhm.
in your back, that sort of thing. So I look like how can we distribute the workload better so that you don't end up with this kind of injury. Now, this is why I call myself a somatic educator. I can help teach someone that the healing of that injury might happen. I find it does happen often with my clients, but I'm not like in as a therapist, sort of trying to fix that wound, right?
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Now,
Mhm.
Cheryl, I know I only asked for a half hour of your time. We're coming up to that. Tell people how they can find you and what you have going on and things of that sort. And I got another couple of questions for you when you're all done with that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, I mean, great to check out my website, peaceandpower.ca. I'm up in the big white north of Canada. So it's a CA site. Our membership site, we've got some online class offers. We've already talked about vitamin MM. It's a weekly class that's really meant to be a movement supplement so that you can keep going at any age. We also have a class called Poise. It's an offering that my Aikido teacher and business collaborator provides. He's offering all of the kind of secret internal technologies of internal martial arts,
Hmm.
but without all of the trappings. So you don't have to go to a Tai Chi class or an Aikido class to get kind of the goods on that. Um, so that's the best place to check me out. I also have a YouTube channel. You can just put in Peace and Power Movement Services, lots of free videos. I call them little movement studies, but to help out with various things.
Fantastic. And I'll be linking to everything in the show notes as well. So don't worry about that. And that's www.peaceandpower.ca. And it's the same name for YouTube, you said, Peace and Power on
That's right.
YouTube? Okay.
That's
All
right.
right. Okay. So a question I had, going back to your bio, because the bio was filled with great information here.
Yeah.
You mentioned the term wholeness.
Mhm.
Somebody you want to help them get into wellness and wholeness. What is wholeness?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I think we could, fill hours sort of going into that.
Oh, we don't
I
got hours, Cheryl.
I know, and so when I talk about it practically, I sort of say I think there's 4 verbs that lead into wholeness. So, thinking, feeling, sensing, and moving. And, we tend in our society we do a lot of thinking, lots of people in our heads, and we might do a lot of moving if people are really active. But to really sense both ourselves and to sense our environment, I find that's one that people go a little bit numb. Like it could be you live in a big city, there's so much going on, you just have to kind of dampen your sensory ability just to be in that environment. And then feeling like how do I emotionally feel about what I'm doing. And so, what I work with people is to kind of again just balance out those four so that they're all resources for you, so that I've got clients, bless them, they move a bit and then they want to think for 20 minutes, right? And they want to talk about it. And it's sort of like, yeah, but what are you feeling right now in your pelvis, right? Like how do you know you're shifted more to the right than the left? Like tune into that part of yourselves, because it's sort of our natural, like any child has a good version of this, right? And then we kind of learn to let go of some of those pieces because we practice some things and we don't do others. So, bringing that all together, what I've seen for myself and in my own kind of personal practice, there's a whole level of kind of whole body intelligence when all of those four groove together
Mhm.
that I have to say everybody wants. I think they want that because it's an amazing place to kind of act from, to be from, but you got to make sure that everything's playing, so that you're actually bringing all of these resources out to what you're doing in daily life.
Fantastic. Wow. That's it, there is so much we can get into here. And I know I didn't get all my questions I have here because this is fascinating. So I want to reserve the right to bring you back another time so we can go into all this in the future.
Yeah,
So,
that'd be awesome. I mean, you have great questions. I can tell you're in it, right? Like, because
well,
you're
thank you.
curious
Thank you.
about very cool things. Yeah.
All right, folks. So, like I said, I only asked for a half hour of your time, and we're right at the end here. I'm with Cheryl Whitelaw with www.peaceandpower.ca. And again, Cheryl, tell us about the classes you have and how people can find you.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely check me out on my website, peaceandpower.ca. I've got a weekly class, Vitamin MM Mindful Movement, that's online. We've got a twice a month poise class that's worth checking out. And we're going to be launching a bunch of sort of recorded focus things. The first one that I'm going to launch is called Sitting is the New Smoking. And, we all sit, right? Like, I
Hmm.
mean, I too, I'm literally a movement instructor and I sit more than half my day. So it's how to make sitting more dynamic so that all of the negative impacts of being sedentary don't land on you.
Fantastic. Again, you can find all this at peaceandpower.ca. And they'll wrap it up for us. And Cheryl Whitelaw, thanks for being the guest on Top Fitness Strategies this week. Folks, if you ever want to contact Cheryl, feel free to peaceandpower.ca, or you can always send me a message and I can get to Cheryl. Not a problem there. So we don't want anybody falling through the cracks. So that's not an issue there. So again, thank you for being here, being my guest, and look forward to doing this again. This has been
Yeah,
fantastic.
this was awesome. Thanks, Anthony. You're great. Yeah.
And it's not Anthony, it's Andrew, but hey, no problem.
Oh, sorry. Oh no, I
Hey,
do that.
I've been called a lot worse, so I'll take Anthony.
I,
Not a problem.
I'll remember how you moved for 10 years, but names I am terrible at. Oh no.
Hey, try being a single guy in the dating world. Try to remember names. That's a whole different topic there. All right, so I'll stop it on that note. So again, folks, thanks for being here. This is Andrew, my guest Cheryl Whitelaw, peaceandpower.ca. So I am the face who runs the place here at Top Fitness Strategies. So until next time, this is Andrew and Cheryl. Ciao.